Mime 3, the old theater had stood for decades, its facade cracked and faded. Its once bright marquee letters long since fallen away. Only the locals remembered its history, and even then, few spoke of it. They whispered of a performer, a mime whose silent acts could bend reality, whose final show ended in blood and mystery before he vanished without a trace. The place was considered cursed, avoided by anyone sensible. But to a group of college film students chasing stories and footage for their horror project, it was irresistible. The group arrived just after sunset, their van rattling to a stop in the weeds that had overgrown the theater's once proud entrance. The building loomed like a tombstone, the broken windows staring like hollow eyes. "This is perfect!" Jenna said, shouldering her camera bag. She was the director, always the one with the vision. And she saw in this decrepit ruin the backdrop for something raw and terrifying. Her crew followed, each of them laughing to mask their nerves. Tyler, the jokester, Monica the actress, Darren the tech guy, and Leah, Jenna's quiet friend who always seemed more cautious than the rest. The air inside was heavy with dust, their footsteps echoing across cracked marble floors and broken tiles. The smell of mildew mixed with something metallic and faintly sweet. They made their way to the stage, their flashlight beams cutting through the darkness. Red curtains still clung to the ceiling, moth-eaten and sagging, and the wooden stage groaned as they stepped onto it. Jenna's camera light flicked on, bathing the scene in harsh white glow. It was Leia who first noticed the mask. It lay in the center of the stage, pale and cracked. Its painted smile faded but still eerily sharp. Its hollow eyes seemed to follow them. "Creepy," Leia whispered. Tyler, always one to go too far, scooped it up and put it on, mimicking exaggerated gestures. He pressed his palms against invisible walls, pretending to be trapped. The others laughed nervously until Jenna snatched it from him, shaking her head. "Save the acting for the film," she said. But when she looked down at the mask in her hands, she felt a chill crawl across her skin. They spent hours filming, their voices echoing in the cavernous space, their flashlights casting long shadows. At one point, Tyler swore he heard clapping in the distance, slow and deliberate. They brushed it off as an echo, though everyone's eyes darted nervously into the dark corners of the room. Later, when Darren reviewed a few seconds of footage, his face went pale. "There's someone in the shot," he whispered. They crowded around the camera screen. In the background, standing near the edge of the curtain, was a tall figure in striped clothing, a pale white mask over his face. His posture was unnatural, his head tilted slightly to the side, and though his mouth was drawn in a smile, his eyes were blank voids. "No way," Monica muttered, glancing toward the curtains. No one was there now. The theater was empty. That night, they decided to camp inside. Leia was against it, her nerves fraying with every creak and groan of the old building. But Jenna insisted. It would help them capture raw material for their film. They set up sleeping bags on the stage, the mask lying off to the side where Jenna had left it. The lights dimmed, their chatter faded, and silence filled the air. But it wasn't true silence. At first, it was faint, the sound of shoes tapping across the stage boards, the squeak of polished soles. Then came the slow clap. Two hollow strikes of palm against palm, echoing through the theater. Tyler sat up immediately, his bravado gone. "That's not funny," he whispered, though no one had moved. Monica shined her flashlight toward the seats in the theater. Rows upon rows of shadows stared back, empty and silent. The clap came again. And then, the sound of chalk scraping wood. They all turned. On the stage floor, just a few feet away, a white line was being drawn by something unseen. It curved into a shaped in, another until a crude outline of a body stretched across the floorboards. The mask lay beside it. It smiled wider in the glow of their flashlight. Panic set in. They scrambled to their feet, debating whether to run or stay together. But before they could decide, the temperature in the room plummeted, their breaths fogged in the air. Then, from the shadows, he stepped into the light. The mime. His striped shirt clung to his long limbs, his gloves gleamed ghostly pale, and his mask was unbroken now, perfect in its cruel expression. He lifted his hands, miming a silent bow, then began to perform. At first, they thought it was some kind of hallucination. He pulled an invisible rope and Tyler laughed nervously, trying to call his bluff. But then Tyler's body jerked forward, his neck straining, as if something really had hooked him. He screamed, clawing at the air, dragged helplessly toward the mime's waiting hands. The others tried to grab him, but their fingers slipped on nothing. Tyler's feet left the ground for a moment before he crashed back down, panting and sobbing. Next, Monica froze mid-step. The mime pressed his palms together, as though building walls around her. She banged her fists against the air, but the sound was of fists striking glass. Her screams were muffled, her body thrashing against invisible barriers. Leah grabbed her arm, yanking her free with a shattering crack like breaking glass, but Monica's fingernails were torn and bleeding. She wept, trembling, while the mime tilted his head and clapped slowly, silently, as though amused. They ran for the exits, but every door was sealed. Darren smashed his shoulder into one, only to rebound as though against solid concrete. The theater had become a box itself, their world shrinking under the mime's control. Jenna dragged them backstage, whispering frantic orders, her hands trembling around her camera. She had kept filming, though she didn't know why. Some instinct told her they needed proof that if they survived, someone had to see this. But the mime followed, his movements fluid and deliberate. He never hurried, never stumbled. He mimed opening a door, and suddenly a side door they had checked before swung wide. For a moment, hope flickered. Darren sprinted for it, but the mime's gloved hand pressed against the air. Darren slammed headfirst into an invisible wall. He crumpled to the floor, blood spreading across the tiles, his body twitching before going still. The others screamed. Leia dragged Jenna and Monica into a narrow hallway, their flashlight beams jittering across peeling wallpaper. The sound of footsteps followed, unhurried, always close, always precise. When they turned a corner, the mime was already there, waiting, his hand raised in a wave. Jenna clutched the mask, though she hadn't realized she picked it up. It felt hot in her hands, pulsing faintly like a heartbeat. The mime's eyes lingered on it. He bowed again, as if acknowledging some unspoken pact. One by one, he claimed them. Monica vanished into an invisible box, her screams muffled until they faded entirely. Tyler was dragged by ropes none of them could see, his body hauled into the shadows, his nails leaving gouges in the wood. Leia tried to shield Jenna, whispering prayers, but the mime only pressed his hand against her throat without touching her. And she choked, her face turning blue until she collapsed in silence. Jenna was the last, alone on the stage, the camera rolling at her feet. She trembled as the mime circled her. He raised his hand, miming a spotlight above her, and a beam of cold white light appeared, bathing her in unnatural brilliance. The empty theater erupted in phantom applause, invisible hands clapping from every seat. She stared at the mask in her hands. Her heart pounded. She understood. Now it wasn't just a prop, it was the source, the tether between their world and his. Trembling, she placed it back onto the floor where she had found it. The mime froze. For a moment, his body shimmered like smoke. He bowed once more, and then, piece by piece, he dissolved into the shadows. The lights went out. The applause faded. When the police entered the theater days later, they found no trace of the students except their scattered equipment. The camera lay on the stage, its battery drained, but the final minutes of footage were intact. Investigators who reviewed it saw Jenna alone on the stage, placing the mask down, then collapsing to her knees. In the background, faint outlines were visible on the stage. Floor 5 chalk figures drawn in perfect silence. And in the very last frame, the mask shifted. Its smile stretched wider, its hollow eyes glimmering faintly, as though it was watching whoever dared to look. The screen went black, and the faintest sound of slow, deliberate clapping echoed from the speakers. The tape was sealed in evidence. The theater was locked for good. But late at night, when the wind passed through its broken windows, some swore they could hear it, still the sound of footsteps pacing the stage, and applause for an audience long since dead.